Robert observed with growing unease as Storm, their typically gentle German shepherd, assumed his usual position beside the baby's crib. The evening shadows lengthened across their cozy suburban home, and, as it had for the past 2 weeks, the same strange ritual unfolded. Storm's ears stood alert, his body tense, and a low, steady growl rumbled from his chest. "I can't figure it out," Robert murmured to his wife, Jenny, who leaned against the doorway of the nursery. Storm had been part of their family for 5 years, ever since Robert had adopted him from an animal shelter. He was known around the neighborhood for his calm and friendly demeanor. Local kids loved to stop and pet him during walks, and Storm basked in the attention. When baby Oliver joined their family 3 months ago, Storm had quickly taken on the role of a protective older sibling. He would lie quietly beside the crib during afternoon naps, his tail wagging gently whenever the baby made a sound. But something had changed. For the last 2 weeks, Storm had become unusually vigilant every evening. Like clockwork, he would position himself by Oliver's crib, staring intently at the far corner of the room and growling softly. Robert had meticulously inspected the nursery multiple times, ensuring that the windows were securely locked, the screens were intact, and there was no sign of pests or intruders. Yet, Storm's behavior persisted, his unwavering focus fixed on that one corner, even as Oliver slept peacefully. Jenny, concerned for Storm's well-being, had suggested taking him to the vet for a checkup. The veterinarian, however, found nothing wrong. Storm was in excellent health, and the vet explained that dogs often react to subtle environmental changes imperceptible to humans. "He might be picking up on something you can't see or hear," she offered. Over the next few nights, Robert stayed up late to observe Storm's behavior. The growls weren't aggressive but seemed more like a warning, similar to how Storm responded when he sensed unfamiliar noises outside. In fact, the dog's posture was always protective, positioning himself as though shielding Oliver from whatever might be lurking in that corner. "Maybe we should call someone to check the house," Jenny suggested one evening, her tone pensive. "Remember last fall? Storm wouldn't stop scratching near the kitchen wall, and it turned out there was a leaking pipe." She had a point. Storm's instincts had proven trustworthy in the past. The next day, while changing Oliver's diaper, Robert noticed something he hadn't before, a faint draft coming from the corner where Storm's attention always lingered. The cool air was barely perceptible but strong enough to make the baby mobile above the crib spin slowly. Could this be what's bothering him? Robert wondered. Dogs were known for their acute senses, detecting subtle changes in temperature or vibrations far beyond human perception. That night, as Storm resumed his steadfast position by the crib, Robert made a decision. "Tomorrow morning, I'll call a home inspector," he told Jenny. Something was clearly amiss, and if Storm was trying to warn them, Robert intended to listen. Robert was determined to uncover the cause of Storm's peculiar behavior. He knelt beside the loyal German shepherd, gently patting his head. Storm responded with a brief wag of his tail, but his intense focus on the corner never wavered. "Good boy," Robert whispered, appreciating the unwavering dedication of his faithful companion. Whatever Storm was sensing, they would figure it out, for Oliver's safety and for Storm's peace of mind. The next morning, Robert wasted no time. He called a local home inspection service the moment they opened. The soonest appointment they could offer was 3 days away, a timeline that felt excruciatingly long given Storm's nightly persistence. Jenny suggested moving Oliver's crib into their bedroom in the meantime, but Robert hesitated. "I don't want to ignore whatever is bothering Storm. If he's trying to warn us, moving Oliver might not solve the issue," he reasoned. Jenny reluctantly agreed. Throughout the day, Robert paid close attention to Storm's behavior and noticed a peculiar pattern he hadn't observed before. In the morning hours, Storm was calm and relaxed in the nursery. He often napped in a sunbeam that streamed through the window, his body fully at ease. However, as the afternoon wore on, his demeanor shifted. By 4 p.m., Storm would begin pacing between the nursery door and that mysterious corner, his anxiety growing as evening approached. It was as if something in the room changed with the passing hours. That day, Robert set up his laptop and paperwork at a small desk near the nursery, determined to keep a close eye on both Storm and Oliver. The draft he had noticed the night before seemed stronger at certain times, particularly when the sun warmed the outer walls of their older home. He wondered if structural issues might explain Storm's growing unease. When Jenny returned from her teaching job that evening, she carried a small notebook filled with questions she had jotted down for the home inspector. "I spoke with Mrs. Hargrove today," she said, referring to their elderly neighbor who had lived in the adjacent house for decades. She mentioned that after the last big storm, she noticed water stains on the wall that backs up to Oliver's nursery. Maybe it's related? That evening, as Storm resumed his customary position by the crib, Robert decided to investigate further. He grabbed a step ladder and a flashlight, determined to inspect the corner that so captivated Storm. The dog watched intently, his eyes following Robert's every move, but he didn't budge from his post. Using the flashlight, Robert examined the corner carefully. He discovered faint hairline cracks in the ceiling paint, branching out like a delicate web. When he pressed his hand against the wall, he felt a barely perceptible vibration, subtle but unmistakable. Oliver, oblivious to the mystery, slept peacefully in his crib, his tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. The baby mobile above the crib spun gently in the draft, casting faint shadows on the walls. Storm's eyes tracked these shifting shadows, but his attention always returned to the same spot. His growl deepened whenever the vibrations intensified. Jenny joined Robert, her voice hushed as she shared her thoughts while scrolling through possible explanations on her tablet. "It could be a loose pipe, structural settling, or even something electrical," she suggested. "But what really worries me is why Storm only reacts at night. There must be something changing in the house as it cools down after sunset." Determined to find answers, the couple decided to take turns staying awake to observe the situation closely. They hoped that between their vigilance and the upcoming inspection, they would finally uncover the source of Storm's concern. Until then, they took comfort in knowing their loyal guardian would remain steadfast by Oliver's side. During Robert's watch late one night, just past midnight, he began to notice something unusual. The faint draft he had felt before now seemed more pronounced, and along with it came a subtle, persistent sound. It wasn't quite a whistle, more of a soft rushing noise, as if air or water was moving through a confined space. The sound seemed to emanate from within the wall near the corner that had been the focus of Storm's attention for so long. The German shepherd's ears twitched with each subtle noise, his growl maintaining its steady, protective tone. Robert carefully picked up Oliver from his crib, cradling the baby close as he slowly walked around the room. As he neared the corner, Storm rose to his feet, moving purposefully to position himself between Robert and the wall. The dog's behavior was not aggressive but deeply protective. It was as though he was determined to shield his family from whatever lay behind that wall. As Robert gently placed Oliver back into his crib, a wave of gratitude swept over him. Storm's unwavering vigilance was an anchor amidst the unease. Dogs, Robert mused, had instincts and senses far beyond human comprehension, and it was clear Storm was trying to convey something significant. Whatever it was, Robert felt certain it was important. Though the home inspector's visit was still days away, the presence of their loyal companion gave him comfort. Storm's devotion to protecting Oliver was steadfast, a silent but powerful reassurance that they weren't facing this mystery alone. Later that night, as Robert finally went to bed, leaving Storm at his self-appointed post, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something significant. Whatever the issue might be, he was deeply grateful for Storm's ability to alert them before it escalated into something serious. It struck Robert how often it took an animal's keen instincts to reveal things humans might miss entirely. When the home inspector arrived promptly on Thursday morning, his sharp gaze immediately noted Storm's tense, watchful posture in the nursery. "Dogs are often better than any tools we use," the inspector remarked, setting his equipment on the floor. "They can pick up on things our instruments might overlook, like the sound of water running through a pipe or wood under pressure." Robert explained Storm's behavior pattern, describing the way the dog grew more anxious as the evenings wore on, while Jenny held Oliver nearby. The inspector listened carefully, nodding as he began his work. He started with basic measurements, checking the walls for plumb and the floors for level. When he reached the corner of the room that Storm had been fixated on, his instruments began to reveal troubling details. "This is interesting," the inspector murmured, holding up a level that showed a subtle but noticeable tilt in the wall. Pressing his hand against the surface, he ran a moisture meter along the area. The device's readings jumped dramatically as it passed over the corner Storm had been guarding. "There's elevated moisture in this section," he confirmed, shining his flashlight along the baseboards. It revealed a barely visible dark line running along the edge. Storm stayed close throughout the inspection, his eyes locked on the corner. When the inspector tapped the wall lightly, Storm's ears pricked forward, and a low, urgent whine escaped him. It was different from his usual growls, almost as if he were confirming that someone else had finally noticed what he had been sensing all along. The inspection proceeded meticulously, each step revealing increasingly concerning findings. The inspector identified significant water damage on the exterior brick wall, pointing to a failing gutter as the likely culprit. Instead of draining away properly during heavy rains, water had been seeping into the wall cavity, slowly compromising the structure over time. "The vibrations you've noticed," the inspector explained, "are likely from water moving through weakened materials, loose bricks, deteriorating wood, things like that. It's subtle, but your dog's hearing is far more sensitive than ours, so he's picking up on it well before you do." The inspector went on to describe how the issue had been escalating, particularly due to the unusually wet spring. During the day, the sun heats the wall, causing the moisture to evaporate and rise. But in the evening, as temperatures drop, the moisture condenses and flows back down. That repeated movement is probably what your dog has been detecting. It's subtle but persistent. Jenny hugged Oliver closer as she listened, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. While they were relieved to finally have an explanation, the implications of the damage were troubling. Repairs would be necessary, and soon, to prevent further deterioration. The inspector continued his evaluation, capturing photographs and jotting down meticulous notes. Storm remained alert throughout, standing by the corner as if ensuring no detail was overlooked. Robert glanced at Jenny, silently grateful that they had trusted Storm's instincts. It had taken their loyal companion's determination to alert them to a danger they would have otherwise ignored, proving once again how invaluable he was to their family. The inspector's findings grew more concerning as he explored further. Beneath the nursery, in the crawl space, he discovered that the water damage had begun compromising critical support structures. If this had gone unnoticed for a few more months, he warned with a solemn tone, you could have faced severe structural problems. The damage would have continued to spread, potentially putting the stability of this entire corner of the house at risk. Pausing, he added with a nod toward Storm, your dog may very well have saved you from a much bigger disaster. Hearing those words, Robert knelt to pat Storm on the head, his gratitude immeasurable. The German Shepherd, who had remained on edge for weeks, seemed to relax slightly now that others had acknowledged the threat he had been tirelessly detecting. The inspector laid out an action plan, recommending immediate repairs and providing a detailed report. He also referred Robert and Jenny to several trustworthy contractors capable of addressing both the water infiltration and the resulting structural damage. That evening, as the family waited for contractor estimates, Storm maintained his vigil near the crib, though his growls were softer, almost resigned, as if he understood that help was on the way. Following the inspector's advice, Robert and Jenny moved Oliver's crib into their bedroom temporarily to ensure the baby's safety until the repairs could be completed. As Storm followed them to their room, pausing to cast one last glance at the nursery corner, Robert felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the dog's persistence and protective instincts. Storm had identified a dangerous issue long before anyone else could have noticed, potentially averting a catastrophe. The contractors arrived the following week to begin repairs. As they carefully opened the damaged wall, they uncovered far more extensive issues than the initial inspection had revealed. The main support beam running through that corner of the house had rotted significantly, its integrity dangerously compromised. Inside the wall cavity, they found mold spreading through the damp, decayed materials. The contractor explained, the vibrations your dog was sensing were likely caused by the weakened beam shifting under the house's weight. Your dog wasn't just reacting to water, he was warning you about a structural failure that could have happened without warning. Hearing this, Robert felt a chill. How many nights had Storm stood guard, sensing the hidden danger that no one else could detect? Margaret took a temporary leave from teaching to oversee the repairs while Robert continued working. She noticed how Storm's behavior began to change as the work progressed. Instead of his nightly growls and tense posture, he now seemed more at ease, though still watchful. Storm often followed the contractors around the house, observing their progress intently, especially when they worked near the nursery corner. The workers grew fond of their attentive canine supervisor. "He's a better safety inspector than we are," one joked, laughing as Storm perked up whenever they examined the damaged area. A visit from their veterinarian shed further light on Storm's remarkable abilities. She explained, dogs can detect subtle vibrations and sounds far beyond human perception. Storm likely wasn't just reacting to the sound of water or creaking wood, he could sense the overall instability of the structure. It's incredible how intuitive they are when something in their environment feels off. As the repairs continued, Robert and Jenny's neighbors became curious about the commotion. After hearing about the hidden damage in the nursery wall, several of them decided to have their homes inspected. To their dismay, many discovered similar issues, though none had been detected as early as Robert and Jenny's. Their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, learned that water damage had already begun seeping into her own walls, prompting her to act before the problem worsened. The contractor explained that the recent stretch of unusually wet weather had contributed to a spike in such issues across the neighborhood. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light through the plastic sheeting that temporarily covered the nursery wall, Robert noticed a striking difference in Storm's demeanor. Instead of his usual tense stance or restless pacing, Storm lay calmly on his bed, his eyes following the workers as they tidied up for the day. The dog seemed content, as though he understood that the danger had passed and his family was safe. Watching Storm, Robert felt an immense sense of gratitude and admiration. The dog's instincts had not only protected Oliver but had also saved their home from further damage. It was clear to Robert that Storm wasn't just a pet, he was an irreplaceable member of their family, a guardian who had once again proven his extraordinary loyalty and intelligence. The visible relief in Storm's demeanor confirmed what Robert had long suspected: their loyal German shepherd could finally sense the danger was passing. The repairs to the house took 2 full weeks to complete. During that time, baby Oliver continued to sleep in his parents' room, and Storm adapted to the temporary arrangement with ease. However, true to his vigilant nature, Storm still made regular checks of the nursery. Each time the contractors worked, the dog would trot in to inspect their progress, his nose twitching as if giving his own seal of approval. The workers, amused by his attentiveness, began referring to Storm as their on-site supervisor. Robert found himself sharing the story of Storm's incredible instincts with friends and other parents at the park. "Dogs perceive things we don't," he'd explain, gesturing toward Storm, who often sat protectively beside Oliver's stroller. "What might seem like odd behavior could be their way of warning us about something significant." Word of their experience even reached the local veterinary clinic, which invited Robert and Jenny to speak at a workshop for pet owners. Using photographs of the water damage and anecdotes about Storm's behavior, Jenny prepared a simple presentation to help other families understand the importance of listening to their pets' warnings. The goal was clear: encourage people to view their pets not just as companions but as potential protectors. As the repairs neared completion, Robert couldn't help but reflect on how close they had come to a serious disaster. If Storm hadn't been so persistent, or if they had dismissed his behavior as anxiety or mere jealousy, the consequences could have been catastrophic. Thanks to their dog's unwavering vigilance, they had caught the problem in time. The contractors reassured Robert and Jenny that the new support beam, along with waterproofing measures and upgraded gutter systems, would prevent similar issues from occurring in the future. Storm was showered with praise and extra treats during this period, though he seemed happiest simply being near Oliver. His nightly growling had disappeared completely, replaced by calm naps near the freshly repaired wall. Robert often found himself pausing in the nursery doorway, watching Storm quietly doze beside Oliver's crib, filled with gratitude for the bond between his son and their devoted dog. Finally, the day came to move Oliver's crib back into the fully repaired nursery. The once damaged walls had been repainted in a soft, soothing shade of blue. The window frames were resealed, and new baseboards gleamed in the sunlight. With the structural repairs complete, the room felt transformed, solid and secure, without a hint of the draft that had once plagued it. Robert and Jenny watched nervously as Storm entered the room for his own inspection. The dog trotted his usual patrol route, his nose working carefully along the baseboards. He paused at the corner that had concerned him for weeks, sniffing thoroughly. Finally, satisfied, Storm flopped down in his favorite spot by the window, his body relaxed and his demeanor calm. For the first time in weeks, there were no growls or signs of unease. That evening, Robert and Jenny carefully placed Oliver into his crib. The room felt entirely different, no longer weighed down by the tension of uncertainty. Storm settled into his usual position beside the crib, but instead of standing guard with his ears perked and his body tense, he stretched out comfortably. Occasionally, he'd lift his head to check on Oliver before settling back down, his breathing slow and peaceful. The transformation was extraordinary. As the family sat together that evening, watching their baby sleep and their dog rest contentedly nearby, Robert reflected on the lessons this experience had taught them. Storm's instincts had saved them from what could have been a devastating situation. The bond between Storm and Oliver had proven not just touching but life-saving, reinforcing how deeply animals could sense and respond to their family's needs. The story of Robert, Jenny, Oliver, and their loyal dog Rocky highlights invaluable lessons about attentiveness, trust, and the importance of bonds within a family, whether human or animal. One of the key takeaways is the significance of listening to subtle cues in our environment, especially those from our pets. Animals, with their heightened senses, often notice things that humans overlook, reminding us to pay closer attention to the world around us. Rocky's persistent behavior demonstrated that instincts should never be ignored, especially when it involves the safety and well-being of loved ones. This story also emphasizes the importance of proactive measures to maintain a safe home environment. The hidden water damage in Robert and Jenny's home could have led to a catastrophic situation had it not been discovered early. It's a reminder to address small issues before they escalate and to stay vigilant about changes in one's surroundings. Finally, the bond between Rocky and his family underscores the profound impact of love and trust. Rocky's unwavering devotion reflects how mutual care and understanding can deepen relationships. In today's fast-paced life, we can learn from their story to value loyalty, nurture connections, and ensure that our loved ones, human or animal, feel protected and cherished. What do you think about the bond between dogs and children? Can such a connection truly be as protective and meaningful as this story suggests? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales like this one. This experience teaches us that love, loyalty, and vigilance often come from unexpected places, and those who truly care for us might save our lives in ways we can't foresee. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.